The conference room on the Coalition flagship was the largest had ever seen. It stretched wider than 3 football fields, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into artificial clouds. Hundreds of alien commanders filled the space, each one representing a different species from across the galaxy. Some had scales that glowed in the dark. Others floated in tanks of purple liquid. A few were just clouds of gas contained in force fields. Stood near the back, his simple uniform making him feel small among all the elaborate armor and bright colors. He was a captain in Earth's expeditionary fleet, but here, he was nobody special. Earth had only joined the Galactic Coalition 10 years ago. Most species here had been members for thousands of years. The holographic display in the center showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked conquered worlds. There were so many red dots. 17 star systems gone in just 3 years. Billions of lives lost. The swarm cannot be stopped, the Supreme Commander announced. He was a species that looked like walking crystals. His voice echoed through translation devices everyone wore. We have sent our best warriors. All have failed. Watched as images appeared above the display. Elite soldiers from dozens of worlds. The Legion, warriors who could slice through steel with their bare hands. The Prism Commandos, soldiers who could become invisible and walk through walls. The Titan Guard, each soldier 3 meters tall and strong enough to lift vehicles. All defeated, all dead. The swarm consumes everything, the Supreme Commander continued. They learn from every battle, they adapt. What worked yesterday fails today. We are running out of options. An admiral from the insect-like species clicked her mandibles. Perhaps we should consider retreat, abandon the outer colonies, build defenses around the core worlds. The room erupted in angry voices. Some species wanted to fight, others wanted to flee, stayed quiet. Nobody would listen to a human anyway. Then Vice Admiral stepped forward. She was the highest-ranking human in the Coalition military. She wore the same simple uniform but she carried herself like she belonged here. Earth wishes to contribute to the war effort, she said. The room went silent, then someone laughed, then others joined in. No offense to your species, the Supreme Commander said, but humans are fragile. You have no natural armor, no energy manipulation abilities. You cannot even survive in most planetary environments without support equipment. What could Earth possibly offer? Did not look offended. We have special forces, a unit called Ghost Company, 40 soldiers. They would like to volunteer. More laughter filled the room. 40 soldiers, a Titan Guard general boomed. We sent 10,000 of our finest warriors. They lasted 6 days. What can 40 humans do? Let us try, said simply. The Supreme Commander shook his crystalline head. I cannot in good conscience send such a small force to certain death. Humans are still new to galactic warfare. You do not understand what you face. Watched as pulled up a file on her. She sent it to the main display. Video footage began to play. It showed a training exercise on Earth. A fortress defended by 300 soldiers with advanced weapons and sensors. The goal was to infiltrate and capture a target inside. The defenders had every advantage. Then Ghost Company went to work. The footage showed nothing, just soldiers at their posts looking alert. Sensors showed no intruders. Everything seemed normal. Then suddenly the target was gone. The exercise was over. Ghost Company had entered the fortress, retrieved the target, and left without being detected even once. Impossible, the Admiral said. Your sensors must have malfunctioned. We ran the exercise 12 times with different defensive teams, explained. Ghost Company succeeded every time. Average time, 4 hours. Average casualties inflicted on defenders, 0. Average times they were detected, 0. The room had gone quiet again, but this time nobody was laughing. This is trickery, the commander said. Deception. Where is the honor in hiding? There is no honor in losing, replied. They do not care about honor, they care about consuming worlds. Ghost Company cares about winning. Another video played. This one showed soldiers moving through a jungle at night. They moved slowly, carefully, almost invisible even on thermal sensors. They communicated with hand signals. They set traps. They waited for days in the same position without moving. When they finally struck, it was over in seconds. Your soldiers fight like predators, an admiral observed, like animals stalking prey. Humans evolved as predators on Earth, found himself saying. Everyone turned to look at him. He felt his face get hot but continued. We hunted animals by tracking them for days. We did not catch them because we were faster or stronger. We caught them because we did not give up. We followed until they were too tired to run anymore. The Supreme Commander studied for a long moment. You believe this approach will work against the... I believe it is worth trying, said. You have tried direct combat. You have tried superior firepower. You have tried overwhelming numbers. All have failed. Maybe it is time to try something different. The commanders discussed among themselves in dozens of languages. The translation devices created a confusing buzz of overlapping voices. Finally, the Supreme Commander raised a crystal hand for silence. Very well, he said. Ghost Company may deploy to Thresh 9. They have established a forward hive there. 6 separate coalition forces have failed to dislodge them. If your 40 humans can succeed where thousands have failed, we will reconsider our strategy. Bowed slightly, thank you, Supreme Commander. As the meeting ended and commanders began to leave, approached. Admiral, do you really think Ghost Company can win? She looked at him with calm eyes. The other species fight with strength and technology. They think that is what war is. But humans learned something else on Earth. War is not about being the strongest. War is about making the enemy lose. Those are two different things. I do not understand. You will, she said. When you see Ghost Company work, you will understand. And more importantly, the galaxy will understand. They fear their own elite forces have failed. Soon, they will fear what happens when humanity's elite forces succeed. 2 days later, stood in the hangar bay watching Ghost Company prepare to deploy. He had expected impressive soldiers in powered armor with heavy weapons. Instead, he saw men and women in simple combat uniforms checking basic rifles and packing light equipment. Commander Sung led the team. He was not tall or especially muscular. He looked like someone you might pass on the street without noticing. His lieutenant was even smaller. She was organizing the team with quiet efficiency. An observer stood next to. This is your elite force. They look like children playing soldier. Watched as showed her team something on a tactical display. They studied it carefully, asking questions, making plans. There was no shouting, no dramatic speeches, just professionals doing their job. Looks can be deceiving, said. We shall see, they replied. They will crush them in hours. Perhaps then Earth will understand that galactic warfare requires more than clever tricks. As the transport ships lifted off carrying Ghost Company toward Thresh 9, felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. The galaxy expected these 40 humans to fail. Maybe they were right. But maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was about to learn something new about what humans could do when the odds were impossible. Thresh 9 looked like a dying world from orbit. The planet had once been covered in green forests and blue oceans. Now, massive organic structures covered the surface like infected wounds. The hive grew across the land, dark purple and pulsing with sick life. Watched from the Coalition observation ship as Ghost Company's transport descended. Around him, alien commanders monitored dozens of screens showing sensor data, satellite feeds, and communication channels. They are landing 200 kilometers from the primary hive structure, the observer noted. Why so far away? The Prism Commandos landed directly on target and achieved total surprise. The Prism Commandos also died within the first hour, reminded him. The transport landed in a rocky valley. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the transport lifted off and returned to orbit. Empty. Where did they go? A tactical officer asked, adjusting his sensors. I show no human life signs in the landing zone. Thermal imaging, another officer suggested. Negative motion sensors. Nothing. Stood calmly in the center of the command center. Ghost Company has begun their operation. You will not see them on sensors. That is the point. Then how do we know they are still alive? The Supreme Commander demanded. Commander Sung will report in every 12 hours, said. Until then, we wait. The alien commanders did not like waiting. They were used to watching battles unfold on screens, artillery strikes, troop movements, glorious charges and heroic last stands. This was different. The screens showed nothing but empty terrain and the growing hive in the distance. 12 hours passed. Then a brief radio transmission came through. Ghost Actual to command. We are in position, beginning reconnaissance. Ghost Actual out. That is all, the Supreme Commander asked. Just reconnaissance. That could be spreading to another world by the time they finish looking around. Did not seem worried. Patience wins more battles than haste, Supreme Commander. Another 12 hours passed. Another brief transmission. Ghost Actual to command. Intelligence gathering complete. Moving to Phase 2. Ghost Actual out. The observer made a frustrated sound. They have been on the planet for one full day and have done nothing. We cannot afford to waste time while they play at being spies. On the second day, something changed. A patrol simply disappeared. 23 creatures walking a route they had walked 100 times before. The sensors showed them one moment, then showed nothing. Did they just stop existing? An officer asked. Impossible, another replied. Check the sensors. The sensors were working fine. The patrol was simply gone. 3 hours later, another patrol disappeared. Then another. By the end of the second day, 7 patrols had vanished without a trace. No weapons fire detected. No explosions. No distress calls from they were just gone. This is Ghost Company's work, the Supreme Commander asked. Yes, confirmed. But how? We see nothing on any sensors. No movement, no heat signatures, nothing. Had been studying the patrol routes. He pulled up a map showing where the patrols had disappeared. They are all along supply routes. These patrols were carrying nutrients back to the main hive. You think Ghost Company is cutting supply lines? I think Ghost Company is doing what humans have always done, said. Finding the weak points and pressing until something breaks. On the third day, they began to react. They sent out larger patrols, 50 creatures instead of 20. They moved in formations. They added guards to the supply routes. It did not help. 3 massive supply caravans disappeared. Sensors showed them entering a canyon. They never came out the other side. When a response force went to investigate, they found the canyon floor covered in some kind of slippery substance. The entire caravan had slid into concealed pits. The pits were too deep for them to climb out, and the substance on the canyon walls made it impossible to get a grip. A trap, the tactical officer said with what might have been admiration. Simple but effective. Where are the humans? The Supreme Commander demanded. Show me Ghost Company's position. We cannot, Supreme Commander, an officer admitted. We still have not detected them even once. By the 4th day, the main hive was showing signs of stress. The organic structures were not growing as quickly. Some sections appeared to be dying. They were sending out frantic search parties in all directions. Then the command nodes started going dark. They used special chambers deep inside the hive to coordinate their swarm. These command nodes sent out pheromone signals that controlled thousands of individual creatures. Coalition intelligence had known about these nodes for years but could never reach them. They were too deep, too well defended. Ghost Company reached them. Impossible, the observer said, watching his tactical display in disbelief. Those nodes are protected by hundreds of warriors. They are inside the hive structure itself. No one could get past those defenses. No one tried to get past the defenses, said, suddenly understanding. They went under them, or around them, or through the ventilation systems. I do not know how, but Ghost Company found another way. Smiled slightly. Commander Sung was a tunnel rat in the Korean military before joining the Space Forces. He spent 2 years crawling through underground enemy tunnels no wider than his shoulders. Lieutenant was a competitive free climber. She can scale a vertical wall using cracks you cannot even see. Every member of Ghost Company has skills that made them invisible or unstoppable in Earth's wars. But the hive is not built for human infiltration, an officer protested. The tunnels are filled with acid. The walls are razor sharp. The air is toxic. Ghost Company has environmental suits. They have chemical neutralizers. They have patience, said. And most importantly, they have something they have never faced before. They have the willingness to spend 3 days lying motionless in a drainage pipe waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Over the next 2 days, chaos spread through the hive. With their command nodes destroyed, individual creatures could not coordinate. They wandered in confused circles. Supply lines collapsed. Queen chambers went dark. One led his fire team through the narrow spaces between the hive's outer walls and inner chambers. They moved slowly, an inch at a time. Their suits were covered in the same organic material as the hive walls, making them nearly invisible. They breathed through filters and communicated through tiny vibrations passed through contact with each other's suits. They had been in this position for 47 hours, waiting, watching, learning. When they finally moved, it took less than 60 seconds. They placed charges on a support structure, activated the timers, and disappeared back into the walls. The explosion was small, barely noticeable, but it caused a chain reaction. An entire section of the hive collapsed inward, crushing 3 queen chambers and destroying a major nutrient processing center. Sora had been lying in the same sniper position for 2.5 days. She had not moved except to slowly shift her rifle barrel a few millimeters at a time. Her suit recycled her body waste. Her rations were injected directly into her bloodstream. She did not sleep. Through her scope, she had watched thousands of pass by her position. None noticed her. She was part of the landscape, just another rock on the hillside. She had taken only 12 shots in those 2 days, but each shot killed a specific target, creatures carrying pheromone sacs that controlled major swarm formations, specialized warriors that coordinated defenses. She did not shoot to kill as many enemies as possible. She shot to break the system. On the 6th day, Commander Sung sent another transmission. Ghost actual to command, primary objectives achieved, hive command structure destroyed, supply network collapsed, recommend coalition forces move in for final cleanup, Ghost actual out. The command center erupted in confusion. Final cleanup, the Supreme Commander repeated. The hive still has thousands of warriors. How can 40 humans claim it is ready for cleanup? Let me show you, said. She pulled up a live feed of the hive. The massive structure was dying. Sections were collapsing. Creatures wandered without purpose. There was no coordination, no defense. What had been a terrifying unified organism was now just a collection of confused individual creatures. Coalition forces moved in. What they had failed to accomplish in a month of siege, they achieved in 6 hours. Without coordination, they could not mount an effective defense. It was not a battle. It was simple extermination. When it was over, Ghost Company emerged from the ruins of the hive. They looked tired but unhurt. Their uniforms were covered in organic matter and chemical stains. They carried their basic rifles and light packs. Watched as Commander Sung reported too, the conversation was brief and professional. No celebration, no dramatic speeches, just soldiers finishing their job. The observer stood next to in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "We did not see them even once," he said quietly. "6 days of operation and our sensors never detected them. How is that possible?" "Because they did not want to be seen," said. "On Earth, humans hunted prey animals by being invisible. We learned to move without sound, to hide without shelter, to wait without impatience. Ghost Company did not bring those skills from their training. They brought them from millions of years of human evolution. And they won without firing more than a few dozen shots," the observer continued. "They destroyed a hive that survived a month of artillery bombardment and mass assault by simply taking it apart from the inside." "Yes." The turn to look at. "The galaxy should be very grateful that humans are our allies." "Yes, agreed, you should be." The Coalition Military Command Center was different this time. When entered for the briefing, he saw something he had never seen before. The alien commanders were quiet. They watched the presentation screens with serious faces instead of dismissive laughter. Ghost Company's success at Thresh 9 had changed everything. "Impossible," the Coalition's chief military analyst had said when reviewing the operation logs. He was a species known for their analytical minds. The mathematical probability of success was 0.03%. No force should have succeeded with these parameters. But Ghost Company had succeeded. And now the Supreme Commander wanted them deployed to 6 more critical battlefronts. Park stood at the front of the briefing room. She was a human combat psychologist, brought in to explain Ghost Company's methods to the confused alien commanders. She wore simple civilian clothes, not a military uniform. Her presentation was direct. "You are asking the wrong question," she began. "You keep asking how Ghost Company won. You should be asking why your forces lost." The room stirred uncomfortably. "Your species fight with honor," continued. "You value direct combat. You believe in facing the enemy openly. You think warfare is about proving who is stronger. This is a cultural limitation, not a tactical advantage." A Titan Guard general stood up angrily. "Are you saying there is something wrong with fighting with courage and honor?" "I am saying they do not care about your honor," replied calmly. "They care about consuming your worlds. When you send warriors to die gloriously, you lose planets. When humans send Ghost Company to win ungloriously, we save planets. Which approach better serves your people?" The general sat down slowly, unable to answer. Brought up images from Earth's history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern special operations. Humans evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. We were not the strongest predators. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws or armor or venom. So we learned to use everything else: tools, traps, deception, patience. We learned that the best fight is the one the enemy never sees coming. She showed footage of Ghost Company operations. Soldiers waiting motionless for days, setting elaborate traps, using the enemy's own environment against them, fighting at night when their enemies could not see, striking from unexpected angles, retreating when necessary without shame. "You call these tactics dishonorable," said. "We call them effective. The question is, do you want to feel honorable or do you want to win?" The Supreme Commander stood. "Deploy Ghost Company to all 6 requested theaters. We will observe and learn." Over the next 3 months, Ghost Company rotated through one battlefield after another. Each time, the pattern was the same. Coalition forces would fight bravely and die gloriously. Then Ghost Company would arrive and win quietly. On 6, they had occupied a fortified mining complex. Coalition forces had attempted 7 frontal assaults, losing thousands of soldiers. Ghost Company studied the complex for 4 days, then discovered they were using the planet's underground water systems to move supplies. Minyu Shin, the team's combat engineer, introduced a bacteria into the water that was harmless to everything except organic material. Within 2 days, the entire complex's biological infrastructure began to fail. They had to abandon their position or die from their own failing life support systems. Coalition forces walked in without firing a shot. "This is biological warfare," a commander protested. "It is forbidden by the rules of war." "Your rules," Minyu replied simply. "They are a biological weapon themselves. We just gave them a taste of their own design." On Station Praxis 4, they had besieged a critical supply hub. The station held out for 2 months, but their shields were failing. One more week and they would fall. Every coalition relief force sent was destroyed before reaching the station. Ghost Company did not try to reach the station. Instead, they infiltrated the siege fleet itself. For 3 weeks, small teams led by Lieutenant and Squad Leader 1 lived inside the. They moved through ventilation systems too small for most species to fit through. They survived on minimal rations and recycled water. They mapped every critical system. Then they struck. Simultaneously across 17 ships, Ghost Company teams destroyed propulsion nodes, communication organs, and command centers. The siege fleet fell apart. Some ships drifted away powerless. Others collided with each other. The blockade broke without the station defenders firing a single shot. "They were inside enemy ships for 3 weeks, an admiral asked in disbelief. "How did they survive? How did they not go insane from the stress?" Han, Ghost Company's senior medic, answered that question during a debriefing. "We train for psychological endurance as much as physical endurance. The human mind is very adaptable when properly prepared. Our soldiers used meditation, focused concentration, and mission focus to maintain their mental state." "But 3 weeks in absolute silence and darkness," the admiral insisted. "Most species would break." "Most species did not evolve as persistent hunters," said. "Human ancestors would track prey for days or weeks across vast distances. We are built for the long game. Waiting does not break us. It focuses us." On the ice world of 9, Ghost Company faced a different challenge. They had adapted to the cold, creating a hive deep under the frozen surface. Coalition forces could not penetrate the ice without alerting the swarm. Sara, the team's lead sniper, spent 11 days lying on a glacier in negative 40-degree temperatures. She barely moved, conserving heat and energy. Through her scope, she studied the ice patterns, learning where the tunnels ran beneath the surface. She identified weak points where the ice was thin. She calculated angles and stress points. Then she fired. Not at enemies, at ice. Each shot was placed precisely to cause maximum structural damage. Cracks spread. Ice shifted. Within 6 hours, entire sections of the hive collapsed as the ice above broke through and flooded the tunnels with freezing water. The cold-adapted could survive ice, but they could not survive the crushing pressure of a glacier breaking apart. "She destroyed a hive with 13 bullets," a Prism commando observed. "How is that possible?" "Understanding of physics, patience, and precision," Sora replied when asked. "I did not need to kill every enemy. I just needed to make the planet do it for me." Each success made the galaxy's elite forces more uncomfortable. They had trained their entire lives to be warriors. They had enhanced bodies, powerful weapons, energy shields, and centuries of proud military tradition. Yet these humans with basic rifles and cloth uniforms were defeating enemies they could not. A meeting was called. Representatives from every coalition special forces unit gathered on the flagship. They wanted to understand what humans were doing that they were not. Commander Sung attended the meeting at the Supreme Commander's request. He stood before hundreds of elite warriors from across the galaxy, many of whom towered over him or glowed with energy or wore armor that could survive orbital bombardment. "What is your secret?" a Titan guard demanded. "You must have some hidden technology, some weapon we do not know about." "Our weapon is adaptability," Sung said. "You train to fight one way. If that way does not work, you keep trying it harder. We train to fight every way. If one method fails, we immediately try something else. We have no pride about how we win, only that we win. That is not a warrior's code, I said. No, Sung agreed. It is a survivor's code. On Earth, species that could not adapt went extinct. Humans survived because we could change faster than our environment could kill us. We bring that same principle to warfare. A Prism Commando asked, "But how do you train for everything? We train for decades to master our phase-shifting abilities. How can humans master so many different skills?" "We do not master everything," Sung explained. "We master the basics very well, then we improvise. Every human child learns to solve problems with limited resources. We call it making do. You see a locked door and think, I need the key. A human sees a locked door and thinks, I need to get through this door, and then considers 50 different methods: picking the lock, breaking the hinges, cutting through the wall, going around, going under, waiting for someone to open it. Each situation requires different solutions." "So you have no discipline?" a warrior asked. "No structure?" "We have discipline where it matters," Sung said. "But we are not rigid. Rigid things break under pressure. We bend, we flow, we adapt. The learn from every battle so we never fight the same battle twice." Park added her perspective. "Your elite forces are specialists. You train them to be the best at one specific type of combat. Ghost Company members are generalists who excel at adaptation. In a stable environment, your specialists would win. But warfare is chaos. In chaos, generalists who can quickly become specialists in whatever is needed have the advantage." The meeting ended with many alien commanders looking thoughtful. Some seemed angry, as if humans had somehow cheated. Others seemed curious, wanting to learn more. Watched it all from the back of the room. He remembered the first meeting when everyone had laughed at the idea of 40 humans making a difference. No one was laughing now. After the meeting, he found looking out at the stars through the observation deck. "They fear us now," said. "Some do," she agreed. "Others respect us. A few are jealous, but all of them are thinking about what it means that humans can do what they cannot." "Is that good?" Considered the question. "It is necessary. They showed the galaxy that their traditional ways of warfare were not enough. Now Ghost Company is showing them that there are other ways to fight, ways that require less glory and more thought, less honor and more effectiveness. The galaxy needs to learn this lesson before something worse than that comes along." "You think something worse is coming?" "Something worse is always coming," she said. "The universe does not care about honor or glory or tradition. It only cares about survival. Species that adapt survive. Species that cling to old ways become extinct. We are teaching the galaxy how to adapt." Far away on the flagship's training deck, members of different coalition special forces were doing something unprecedented. They were training with Ghost Company instructors. Titan guards were learning patience and stealth. Prism commandos were studying trap setting. Warriors were practicing how to retreat and reposition without shame. It was uncomfortable for everyone. The alien soldiers felt like they were betraying their traditions, but they were learning, and slowly they were beginning to understand. War was not about being the strongest or the bravest or the most honorable. War was about making the enemy lose while you survived. Everything else was just ego. And ego, as Ghost Company had proven again and again, did not win battles. The alert came at 300 hours. Red lights flashed throughout the coalition flagship. Every commander was called to the central command center immediately. Arrived within minutes, still fastening his uniform. The holographic display showed the worst possible scenario. A massive fleet, larger than anything seen before, was heading directly toward Coalition Command Center Alpha. This was not a raid or a siege. This was an extinction strike. "How many?" the Supreme Commander asked, his crystal body dim with stress. 3,000, the tactical officer reported. "Carrying an estimated 2 million ground forces. They will reach Command Center Alpha in 48 hours. Silence filled the room. Command Center Alpha was the heart of coalition military operations. It housed the Strategic Planning Division, the Communications Network, and the command structure for 17 sectors. If it fell, the coalition would be unable to coordinate its defenses. The war would be lost. "We have 14,000 elite soldiers stationed at Command Center Alpha," a Titan Guard general said. "We can hold." "No, you cannot," said quietly. She had appeared in the doorway, Commander Sung beside her. "They have learned from every battle. They know how you fight. They know you will make a glorious stand. They are counting on it." "What else can we do?" the Supreme Commander demanded. "Abandon our command center. Retreat." "We fight," Sung said, stepping forward. "But we fight smart, not brave, smart." He brought up a tactical display of Command Center Alpha. The facility was built into a massive asteroid. 5 entry points, all heavily fortified. Thousands of defensive weapons. Energy shields strong enough to survive orbital bombardment. It was designed to be impregnable. "They will hit all 5 entry points simultaneously," Sung explained. "They will overwhelm your defenses through sheer numbers. They do not care about casualties. Every soldier you kill just feeds their organic matter recyclers. They win by drowning you in bodies." "Then what do you suggest?" the commander asked. "We cannot defeat 2 million enemies with 14,000 soldiers." "We do not defeat them," Sung said. "We trap them." The plan was insane. That was the first thing every commander said. The second thing they said was that it might work. Sung proposed a fighting retreat. As they attacked, coalition forces would fall back slowly, layer by layer, make the swarm think they were winning, draw them deep into the facility. Then Ghost Company, embedded throughout the structure, would collapse the trap. "You want to use our soldiers as bait," a Titan Guard general roared. "That is cowardly." "That is strategic," Lieutenant said calmly. She had entered with detailed plans on her. "Every soldier will know the plan. Every soldier will have a role. No one will be sacrificed, but everyone must trust the timing." "And if your timing is wrong?" the Admiral asked. "If Ghost Company fails?" "Then we all die together," said simply. "But if we fight the way you want to fight, we die anyway. At least this way we have a chance." The Supreme Commander looked at his advisors. They were desperate. Command Center Alpha had to be defended, but traditional methods would not work against such overwhelming numbers. "Very well," he decided, "but I want to understand exactly what Ghost Company will do." For the next 36 hours, Sung and his team transformed Command Center Alpha into the most elaborate trap ever created. Sung, the demolitions expert, rigged entire sections with explosive charges, not to destroy the facility, but to seal corridors and redirect the swarm's movement. The chemical warfare specialist distributed canisters of specialized compounds throughout the air circulation systems. The compounds were harmless to every known species except the. When released, they would disrupt the pheromone signals the swarm used for coordination. Minyu Shin modified the facility's power grid, creating hidden shutoffs and reroutes. At the right moment, he could redirect all power to specific zones, creating electromagnetic fields that would trap or disable organic technology. And his marksman team positioned themselves in hidden locations throughout the facility. They had one job: eliminate Queen Caste coordinators. Without these special that controlled larger groups, the swarm would fracture into confused individuals. And Bora, the team's infiltration specialist, had done something even more dangerous. 2 weeks earlier, she had allowed herself to be captured during a skirmish. They had taken her back to their staging area, thinking she was just another prisoner for their bioprocessors. Instead, Bora had spent 14 days living inside, studying their communications, learning their patterns, gathering intelligence. She wore a suit covered in pheromones. To the swarm, she smelled like one of them. She had been inside their most secure facilities, learning their attack plans. This woman risked her life for 2 weeks gathering intelligence. The Supreme Commander asked when he learned what Bora had done. That is her job, Sung said, and she volunteered. When Bora finally reported back, she provided complete details of the battle plan. She knew which entry points they would hit hardest. She knew where their command creatures would position themselves. She knew their supply routes and communication nodes. How did you survive for 2 weeks surrounded by enemies? A warrior asked her. I stayed calm, Bora replied. I moved slowly. I followed their patterns. They identify threats through pheromones and behavior. If you smell right and act right, they think you belong. It is like disguise but chemical instead of visual. But the stress, the warrior insisted. 2 weeks never knowing if they would discover you. I meditated, Bora said. Human monks on Earth can sit still for months. I only needed 2 weeks. The mind is trainable like any muscle. You just need practice. The fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 3,000 darkened the space around Command Center Alpha like a plague cloud. The ground forces were already loading into assault pods. Coalition forces took their positions. The elite warriors from 20 species stood ready at the 5 entry points. They looked grim but determined. Many of them had trained with Ghost Company over the past months. They understood the plan. More importantly, they trusted it. Stood in the command center with, and the Supreme Commander. He watched the screens showing every angle of the facility. All Ghost Company teams report ready. His voice came through the communication system. She was coordinating from deep inside the facility. Coalition forces, remember the timing, fall back slowly. Make them think they are winning. Do not break formation. Trust the plan. The assault began. Forces hit all 5 entry points like a tidal wave. Millions of creatures, all coordinated, all pushing forward with single-minded purpose. The coalition defenses held for the first hour, then began their planned retreat. It was hard to watch. Elite warriors trained to never retreat were now falling back, step by step. Some of the alien commanders in the control center were visibly shaking, their instincts screaming to send reinforcements, to hold the line, to fight harder. Hold your positions, said quietly. Trust the plan. The push deeper into the facility. They were winning. They could taste victory. Their coordinating creatures sent signals of triumph through the swarm. Push forward, consume, victory is near. They are at the first checkpoint, reported. Begin Phase 1. Throughout the air systems, invisible compounds began to spread. They did not notice at first, but slowly their coordination began to fail. Groups that should move together started drifting apart. Commands became confused. Phase 2 ordered. Sung activated the first set of charges. They were small, precise. Corridors collapsed behind the advancing swarm, not to kill them but to trap them, redirect them, force them into specific zones. They suddenly realized they were not chasing a retreating enemy. They were being herded. They are trying to retreat, a tactical officer reported. The swarm is attempting to pull back. Now, Sung commanded. Everything happened at once. Minyu cut power to the occupied zones and rerouted it to electromagnetic containment fields. Trying to provide support, suddenly found themselves unable to approach. Their organic systems shut down in the electromagnetic wash. And his marksman teams opened fire. 13 shots in 3 seconds. 13 Queencast coordinators dead. Entire sections of the swarm lost their direction. More charges detonated. Not killing shots but strategic collapses. The facility's structure was designed with multiple redundant sections. Ghost Company had studied it for weeks. They knew exactly which walls to drop to divide the swarm into isolated pockets. Released the full concentration of her pheromone disruptors. The effect was immediate. The swarm shattered. Millions of individual creatures, suddenly unable to communicate, unable to coordinate, unable to understand what was happening. Coalition forces stopped retreating and counterattacked, but it was not a battle anymore. It was extermination. Confused, isolated groups of were systematically eliminated. Without coordination, they were just animals, dangerous but manageable. The entire operation took 4 hours from start to finish. When it was over, Coalition Command Center Alpha stood intact. The extinction fleet was destroyed, not through superior firepower, not through heroic last stands, through planning, patience, and the willingness to fight without ego. Casualties. Coalition forces lost 837 soldiers. Most died in the initial defense before the trap was sprung. By comparison, a traditional defense would have killed everyone. The alien commanders stood in shocked silence, watching the aftermath on their screens. 2 million enemies, the Supreme Commander finally said, defeated by 14,000 defenders and 40 humans who refused to fight fair. We fought perfectly fair, Sung said. We just did not fight stupidly. There is a difference. A Titan Guard general, one who had objected to the plan most strongly, approached Sung. He was covered in wounds but alive. His entire unit had survived because they trusted the retreat plan. You saved my soldiers, he said quietly. I called your methods cowardly. I was wrong. This was the bravest thing I have ever been part of. Retreating while the enemy advances, trusting that someone else has a plan, knowing that one mistake means everyone dies. That takes more courage than any charge I have ever led. Sung nodded. Courage is not about ignoring fear. Courage is about doing what is necessary despite fear. Your soldiers were very courageous today. Walked through the facility after the battle, seeing Ghost Company teams emerge from their hidden positions. They looked exhausted. Some were wounded. All were professional. They checked their equipment, helped with cleanup, prepared for the next mission. These were not super soldiers with enhanced abilities. They were just humans who understood something the galaxy was finally learning. War was not about glory. It was about survival. And humans had spent millions of years learning how to survive against impossible odds. The war ended 3 weeks after the Battle of Command Center Alpha. The Swarm, their mystique shattered and their coordination broken, sued for peace. They retreated to their original territory and agreed to coalition oversight. It was not a glorious victory with parades and celebrations. It was simply over. Stood in the same conference room where this had all begun 6 months earlier. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed. The alien commanders who had laughed at the idea of 40 humans making a difference now watched Ghost Company with careful respect. And something else. Something that made uncomfortable. Fear. The Supreme Commander called the meeting to order. The Coalition owes a great debt to Ghost Company and to Earth. We wish to offer you permanent positions in Coalition Command. You will train our forces in your methods. You will lead future operations. You will be honored as heroes across the galaxy. Commander Sung stood. His uniform was clean now, but everyone in the room remembered seeing him covered in blood and chemical stains. We appreciate the offer, Supreme Commander, but we respectfully decline. Silence. You decline, the Supreme Commander repeated. But why? You have earned these positions through your service. We are soldiers, not politicians, Sung said. We are not teachers. We solved a specific problem. That problem is solved. Now we return to Earth and wait for the next problem that needs solving. Lieutenant added, Ghost Company works best when we are left alone to do our job. Command structures, ceremonies, politics, these things slow us down. We prefer to remain a small unit that can deploy quickly and operate independently. A commander stood. I must speak plainly. Many of us are uncomfortable with the methods you employed. Yes, they worked, but they violated many of our cultural codes about honorable warfare. I know, Sung said, and we respect your cultures, but we do not share them. Earth's history is full of species that fought with honor and went extinct. Humans survived by being practical. We will not apologize for that. No one is asking you to apologize, the Supreme Commander said. But we must discuss something difficult. Your capabilities have raised questions. If humanity ever turned hostile toward the Coalition, could we stop you? The room went very quiet. This was the question everyone had been afraid to ask out loud. Stood slowly. Shall I answer honestly, Supreme Commander? Please. No, she said simply. You could not stop us. Not easily. You have superior numbers, superior technology, superior physical capabilities. But you also have predictable tactics, cultural limitations, and an unwillingness to adapt quickly. Ghost Company is 40 soldiers. Earth has 9 billion humans. Many are far more creative and far more dangerous than Ghost Company. The alien commanders shifted uncomfortably. But continued, you are asking the wrong question. You should not ask if you can stop us. You should ask if you need to. Earth has no interest in galactic conquest. We have no desire for conflict. We joined the Coalition because we believe in mutual cooperation. The threatened that cooperation, so we helped remove the threat. That is all. An admiral spoke up. But how can we trust that Earth will always remain peaceful? Power corrupts. You have proven you have power. You cannot trust it, admitted. Trust is not about certainty. Trust is about risk and relationship. We have fought beside you. We have bled beside you. We have shown you our methods not to intimidate you, but to help you survive. If you cannot trust us after that, then no words I say today will change your mind. Watch the alien commanders. Some nodded. Others still looked worried. Trust was hard, especially when you had just witnessed how dangerous your ally could be. The Supreme Commander made his decision. Earth will remain a full member of the Coalition. Ghost Company will maintain their independent status. But we ask that you continue to share your training methods with our forces, not to make them exactly like you, but to help them think more flexibly. We can do that, Sung agreed. In fact, we already are. It was true. Over the past months, Ghost Company members had been quietly training Coalition special forces, not trying to change their cultures, but adding new skills to their repertoires, teaching patience to warriors who valued aggression, teaching stealth to soldiers who prized direct confrontation, teaching adaptation to forces that relied on rigid doctrine. The results were already showing. Coalition forces were winning battles they would have lost before, not because they fought like humans, but because they had learned to think like humans when the situation required it. After the official meeting ended, smaller conversations began. Alien commanders approached Ghost Company members with questions. Some wanted to understand specific tactics. Others wanted to discuss philosophy. A few simply wanted to thank the humans who had saved their worlds. Found himself talking to the Titan Guard General, whose unit had survived the Command Center Alpha battle. My people have warrior poems that are 10,000 years old, the general said. They speak of honor and glory and dying well in battle. After fighting beside Ghost Company, I find myself questioning those poems. Why? Asked. Because they focus on the warrior, not on what the warrior protects. They celebrate beautiful deaths instead of ugly survival. I lost more soldiers in one glorious battle before you arrived than I lost in 6 months fighting your way. My people's poems say nothing about the families who got their soldiers back alive. He paused, looking at his massive hands. I think we need new poems. Poems about warriors who do what is necessary instead of what is beautiful. Poems about victory that lets soldiers go home to their children instead of dying heroically for a statue. Had no response to that. The general did not seem to expect one. Across the room, Park was explaining human psychology to a group of interested commanders. Humans experience fear like any species, she said. The difference is what we do with that fear. Most species try to eliminate fear through courage or honor or cultural conditioning. Humans accept fear as useful information. Fear tells us something is dangerous. Then we decide if we should avoid it, prepare for it, or use it against our enemies. Use fear as a weapon, a Prism commando asked. Always said. They relied on their reputation to demoralize enemies. We showed the galaxy that reputation is just reputation. Once broken, it is worthless. Now they fear us because we proved they are not invincible. That fear is a more effective weapon than any bomb. On the other side of the room, several Ghost Company members were sharing a quiet moment. They had been offered medals, promotions, and permanent hero status. They had declined all of it. One was explaining why to a curious officer. "We did our job," he said simply. "We do not need recognition for doing our job. The recognition we want is that next time there is a crisis, someone thinks maybe the humans have an idea. That is enough." Sora added, "Besides, medals and ceremonies just make us targets. We prefer to remain unknown. Hard to fight enemies who do not know who you are or where you are." The officer thought about that. "You are already planning for the next war." "We are always planning for the next war," Sora agreed. "Peace is just the space between conflicts. Smart warriors prepare during peace so they are ready during war." Minyu Shin was showing some interested engineers the modifications he had made to Command Center Alpha's power systems. "It is not complicated," he was explaining. "You just need to think about infrastructure as a weapon. Your people build things to be strong and permanent. That is good. But we also build in flexibility. Ways to redirect power, reroute systems, turn our own buildings into tools for defense." "This seems paranoid," one engineer commented. "On Earth, we have a saying," Minyu replied. "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Paranoia only looks foolish until the crisis happens. Then it looks like good planning." As the evening continued, found himself standing on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "They fear us now," he said. "Is that what we wanted?" "We wanted survival," replied. "Fear is just a side effect, but it is not a bad thing. Fear creates respect. Respect creates caution. Caution prevents unnecessary conflicts." "But what if fear creates hostility?" "Then we deal with that when it happens," she said calmly. "We cannot control how others feel about us. We can only control how we act. We acted to save lives and end a war. If that makes some people uncomfortable, that is their problem, not ours." She pointed at the stars. "Earth is small compared to the galaxy. Humanity is young compared to these ancient species. We do not have their strength or their technology or their long histories, but we have adaptability, we have persistence. We have the ability to do what others think is impossible. That is our place in the galaxy. Not conquerors, not heroes, just survivors who refuse to lose." The next day, Ghost Company boarded transports bound for Earth. There were no ceremonies, no parades, just soldiers going home after completing their mission. But across the galaxy, something had changed. In military academies, instructors were adding new courses: adaptive warfare, asymmetric tactics, psychological operations. The textbooks were written by humans. The examples came from Ghost Company operations. Young cadets from hundreds of species were learning that war was not about glory or honor or tradition. War was about winning while preserving as many lives as possible. In command centers, generals were redesigning their strategies. They were adding flexibility to rigid plans. They were considering unconventional approaches. They were asking, how would the humans do this when faced with impossible situations? In political chambers, diplomats were reconsidering their assumptions about the new species from Earth. Humanity had been admitted to the coalition as junior members, primitives who needed protection and guidance. Now they were seen as dangerous equals who could defeat what others could not. The change was subtle but profound. Before Ghost Company, humanity was tolerated. After Ghost Company, humanity was respected and feared. Received a promotion. He was now part of the coalition liaison team, working directly with Earth's military. His job was to help bridge the gap between human and alien military cultures. It was challenging work. The aliens wanted to understand how humans thought. Humans wanted to ensure the aliens did not become dependent on human methods. Both sides were learning to work together better. One day, a young officer approached with a question. "Captain, I have been studying Ghost Company's operations. I noticed they never celebrated their victories. They never claimed to be heroes. Why?" Thought carefully before answering. Because heroes are for stories. Soldiers are for wars. Heroes get remembered. Soldiers get the job done. Ghost Company cares about the job, not the story. But surely they deserve recognition. They have the only recognition that matters, said. They have the knowledge that their actions saved millions of lives. They do not need statues or poems. They have results. That is enough. The young officer nodded slowly. "We have much to learn from humanity." "And we have much to learn from you," replied. "Your people have courage and strength that humans respect deeply. We simply showed you different ways to use those qualities. That is what allies do. They make each other stronger." Years would pass. The lessons learned from Ghost Company would spread throughout the coalition military. Tactics would evolve. Strategies would adapt. The rigid, honor-bound warfare that had nearly cost the galaxy everything would slowly transform into something more flexible, more pragmatic, more effective. And whenever a crisis arose that seemed impossible, whenever enemies appeared that could not be defeated by conventional means, the coalition would turn to Earth and ask the question that once would have been laughable. What would the humans do? Sometimes Ghost Company would deploy directly. Sometimes they would advise from a distance. Sometimes they would just share their thinking and let others execute the plan. But always, the galaxy remembered the lesson that 40 humans had taught them. Elite forces were not about being the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. Elite forces were about being the most adaptable, the most persistent, and the most willing to do whatever was necessary to win. The galaxy had feared its elite forces would fail against the humanity proved why the galaxy should fear what happens when humans do not fail. Not because humans were invincible, but because humans were survivors who refused to accept defeat, no matter how impossible victory seemed. And that, more than any weapon or technology, made humanity the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. The most dangerous and, in the end, the most valuable.